Perfume Femur has seemed to become a Nami staple overnight, with many of you asking why we're adopting a card like this. With some success in the eastern side of things with Nami and OP07, a lot of them weren't playing Perfume Femur, if at all. A lot of the Nami lists were relatively the same, but I think a lot of Nami brewers and great minds have really innovated to show that Perfume Femur and the Kuja Pirates build is actually the way to go in this new metagame, and that's kind of what I want to do today. Break down why Perfume Femur is really good right now, giving you 3 big reasons why this is the next big Nami staple. Now, if you wanted to see more Nami videos like this talking about different cards, leave a like on the video and comment down below what card you want to see me break down next. And honestly, by default, you should be leaving a like on the video if you're a Perfume Femur fan. Hopefully by the end I can convert all of you. Now, the card itself, reading it, is 2 cost for a 7 Warlords of the Sea or Kuja Pirates build, which is going to be important. That says on main, you can select up to 1 of your 7 Warlords Sea type characters or leaders, and that card gains plus 2k power during this turn. Then if the selected card attacks this turn, your opponent can activate blockers. So it gets a boost. It kind of gets this, honestly, it kind of is the Red Rush Luffy ability where you attach 2 Dawn to it, so it gets a 2k buff and your opponent can activate blockers. You know, just kind of nice here. And like, it's specifically when the selected card attacks. So in the future, if you get like restand effects and stuff, then you can abuse the shenanigans. But it's really, that main effect isn't really what it's there for. And that's kind of the key here. A lot of people are confused because if we're not playing 7 cost Crocodile, how do we take advantage of a card like this? That's what we're going to go break down into with kind of reason number 1 here. And that's going to be its trigger. So very similar to Impel Down All-Stars. Impel Down All-Stars, you're playing this primarily for its draw 2 trigger. Absolutely insane trigger for Nami, and it's been a staple ever since the deck has been out. You really need to be playing a card like this because in those games where you're so far behind, Impel Down All-Stars draws you into the gas that you need. And heck, even on its main ability, now that we have the sim kind of more 1-for-1 in terms of how cards work, you can just play this out to dump certain cards out of your hand, especially if you're playing a Deathwink heavy build. If you need to enable a Deathwink on your main and you know that the first thing you need to do on your opponent's attack is just Deathwink and draw some cards, then a card like this is really great to enable that. Heck, there are some effects out there that maybe draw or do certain things if you kind of reduce your hand size a bit. So that's going to be useful for that, maybe against like a Perona, a Law, or just anything that draws you a card. So Impel Down All-Stars has a lot of great niche applications, but you're playing it for its trigger. And when it comes to something like Perfume Femur, one of the big reasons you're playing it for is because, yes, it draws a card on its trigger. So when it's there in your life, it still does something. It replaces itself. And it's not exactly like a rubber band where, you know, you draw a card and you mill a card, which is 2 cards as well. You regardless get to draw 1 card, which is going to be very important, which is going to be very relevant because it's not milling a card, it's adding a card back to your hand. So that life kind of converts. It's kind of like, you know, you're adding it to your hand, but then the card actually has an effect. So you put it in the yard and, you know, you're on your merry way. So the trigger is the first and foremost reason, one of the smaller reasons that you're playing a card like this. If it had a different trigger, like it didn't draw a card, I actually feel like this card wouldn't be good enough. So not Impel Down All-Stars, but Perfume Femur. If it didn't draw a card, I feel if it just said like activate the main ability, the card would probably be useless altogether. We would actually probably be enacting the same concept we're doing with Perfume Femur, but with another like Kuja Pirates type that maybe is like a 2k counter, which honestly is a viable option as well. But that leads me to my second point here. What happens when it's not in your trigger? What happens when you draw it? Well, one of the first ways is that you actually get to remove it from your deck with something like Gloriosa. So it's kind of like drawing a card. It's a target because now Nami decks are kind of playing with Gloriosa, Snake Dance, Margaret, these other kind of Kuja Pirates types cards that we're now able to take out of our deck and constantly search through, especially when in combination with a card like Snake Dance that allows you to bounce a character on trigger and on its counter effect. You can bounce things like Gloriosa to continuously move through your deck to grab Love Mellows and heck, proactively you can grab the Margarets. But if you are in a pinch and the only target you have is the Perfume Femur, then heck, grab that as well. At the end of the day, this is, you know, kind of 1 cost and hopefully it's able to draw you a card. And if Perfume Femur is there as a target at a base level to enable Gloriosa, then it is good in every way, shape, and form. But once you get into your hand, What's so great about it? Again, as we talked about, it doesn't really have an effect on its main. Yes, you get to pull it out of your deck, but then it's kind of stuck in your hand. If you don't have Gavels to pitch it, which is another great way to get you rid of it, maybe you have like a Deathwing stuck in your hand. Maybe you have some reason to want to get low on cards. Again, maybe something like a 4-cost Law that might come out and get you discard randomly, leaving the Perfume Femur behind. It could be Perona fodder as well, but again, if it's stuck in your hand, what do you do with a card like this? Ultimately, your final decision is going to be Apis. Apis is the big enabler, the big reason to move to 8 dead cards in your list. That's right, that's 4 Perfume Femur, 4 Impel Down All-Stars. Some folks are playing 3 Perfume Femur, 1 Deathwing. That is my personal preference because I love Deathwing to that death, pun intended there. But Apis here, 1 cost. On play, you may trash 2 cards from your hand, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 East Blue type card and add it to your hand, then place the rest at the bottom of your library in any order. So Apis hasn't been played for a while. It's since like 05 meta, and even in 05 meta, it was kind of back and forth as well. It's probably more so played in 04, but I wasn't around in 04, so I'll comment from 5 and onward. It's a 2-cost, it's a 1-cost 2k counter, so great on its baseline. It's a searcher that can actually search for itself, which has levels of relevancy as well in current Nami lists that are playing like 3 to 4 copies of Apis. So if you really need to, in a pinch, you can tutor for a 2k counter, but you do have to trash 2 cards from your hand. And I think that's where the value of this comes. In previous Nami lists, what you were doing where you were taking actual valuable cards because most of the cards in your deck were really playable, and you had to get rid of them to then look for something like a Kaya or a Pilaf. Noting that the big targets in this deck right now in Nami are Kaya, Pilaf, Sanji's Rubber Band, Gum Gum Gavel is actually an East Blue type card, and Apis as well, because you can tutor for it as well. So you actually have a fair amount of hits, and really what you're looking for again is the Pilaf, is the Kaya, because it allows you to draw it through your deck. If you need to grab a Gavel, fine, because Gavel, but the thing is with Gavel is that you're probably getting rid of an Impel Down All-Star and or a Femur as well, like 2 Femurs, 2 Impels, or like one or the other. You're probably getting rid of those 2 cards from your hand to then convert into a Pilaf, and that's kind of what's nice here. You're kind of like using 3 cards. Like if you get a Pilaf, you're using 3 cards to get 2 cards. You're spending 4 Dawn to discard 3 cards and draw 2 cards, right? So you play the Apis, which is kind of like discarding a card, then you discard 2 cards, you get rid of 3 cards, you get a Pilaf, you spend 3 more Dawn, draw 2 cards. You know, you pull the Pilaf out of your deck, that's 3 cards. So it's kind of like 3 for 3. Right, it's kind of like a 3 cards for 3 cards for 4 Dawn, which honestly isn't that bad when you think about it on rate. So really, it's about enabling the Apis, and Apis was one of the more powerful cards that existed in Nami. It's just that card disadvantage was really hard to justify, even in a world of Deathwing. Really, all you needed to do was play something like Mr. One to get back your Gavels, to then continue to shrink your hand size down while getting 4k counters and milling your deck. But we don't play Mr. Ones anymore. The deck is full of counters and characters, especially because you need to enable the Gloriosa itself. So Apis is our primary way to search through our deck, get rid of dead cards, and keep proactively moving and moving and moving. And at the end of the day, again, it's just a free 2k counter, which is then, again, further enabled by the fact that we're just playing Perfume Femur. So a lot of great things are coming out of us playing a card like Perfume Femur, and I think that's what's really valuable about it. So I hope this video was useful to you, walking you through why you should be playing Perfume Femur, why you should be playing the Gloriosa list, and why introducing a dead card into the Nami decks have actually helped it do really well in OP07.